Welcome back to In Plain Sight. This is a podcast where I openly share my vulnerabilities with you, and it has quickly become somewhat of a confession series. I just wanted to pre warn you or whoever is listening. I don't really know how this is going to come out. And the stuff that I talk about in this podcast are, although real stories, they're pretty intense. And I talk about, drug use, alcohol use. I just feel like I had to say that about that because it's about to get, closer to the worst parts of it. And if you have if you can't hear this stuff, like if you don't want to be triggered, or if you feel like you need to censor it from your knowledge or something, if you're, I don't know, just giving you a fair warning. Anyway, this podcast is about evolving human consciousness ultimately by becoming our most authentic selves. And in order to do that, we have to be able to let go of and acknowledge first, because you can't let go of anything you don't know is there, but acknowledge the things that hold us back from achieving that ultimate self realization and actualization. So, these things specifically that I like to talk about and address, if you struggle with addictions, or if you are in a codependent relationship or you have a codependent attachment style, and how those things ultimately lead to your loss of identity. And that's just like probably the worst. I think that, losing yourself and going that, being that far from who you really are is something that's just so sad. And I've gone through it for a long time, and I just want to help now, because only recently this year have I walked away from those things and fully delivered myself from them. And I just feel like it's not as easy as it looks, obviously. And speaking of looks, people don't always look like they are doing these things. And so they hide it and they have such a lonely life. And then, the worst happens, and you don't want that to happen in general, but to be alone when you're going through something like that is very hard. I know from experience. Anyway, so I want to change the stigma around addiction and codependency and promote more understanding and compassion in this conversation, because there's so much judgment. And that's also another thing that keeps people from getting help, or from just telling somebody, even in general, that might otherwise help them or just love on them when they need it. The addict will get help when they're ready, truly. And if you're ready, or you know somebody who is, um, you can contact me. You can go through my website. It's www.evolvedperspective.com, and that is EVOLV 3D perspective. And then I also wanted to announce, before I start, go back to my story, I am launching a community through that website. It's to offer a space for people who struggle with these things as well, to have a safe space to vent, and a place to gather with other individuals who have gone through things that you have, who can relate to you. Because that's one of the most important things. One of the reasons that I hid things from so many people is because I didn't, they're, they didn't understand at all. Like, tell me if you can relate to this. When you're in your active addiction, you normalize the things that you're doing, when you forget, like, the rest of the world does not operate like that, or they don't have to do that every day, or whatever it is that you're doing. Like for me, it was drugs or drinking heavily, but drinking was a little more socially accepted, obviously. But when I was doing other drugs, like, it's that was part of my everyday. It was part of my like daily routine or whatever, off and on through like the better part of a decade. And like, I don't I can't tell you how many times like I would talk to somebody and then that topic would come up, not about me, but just like in general. And they were just like appalled by it, or just completely caught off guard, like, whoa, can you imagine living like that? Or like something. And it's just like, oh, well, yeah, I can. Like, that's my everyday. But they have no clue that it is for you, or just, I don't know. It's such a strange part of addiction. And it's very interesting. But it leaves you very isolated and lonely. And that isolation is a killer. It is the worst thing that we can do for ourselves. So, I mean, I want to provide a space that is just somewhere for people to connect again. If you've been isolating, even like come and join this community. Like it can be your stepping stones back into society. Like I had no idea how to rejoin society whenever I stopped. Like I still haven't completely, you know. I'm connecting online and it's hard, but we'll get there and we can get there together. So, there's just, it's not a therapy space. There's not going to be anybody professional on there unless there's professionals that join for whatever reason, but it's not, it's totally casual. So, you know, people can vent, share wins or share questions or ask questions. Finding authentic friendships is like another benefit of that too. Like people there, as much as addicts lie and steal and whatever and cheat, whatever it is that they're doing, as much as that is the stigma on them, I have met some of the most genuine people through that journey. Like they're really talented and they're really like just caring and they're generous, you know, and we really get a bad rap. So I just encourage you to go check that out if you are interested. This community is open to everyone. If you are struggling with this, or if you have struggled with this, or if you know somebody who struggles with this and you just want to know how to relate to them or how to impact them or how to be there for them or how to understand them, even come to a community where there's lots of people that can give you different opinions and their different experiences, different needs. Everybody is so different that goes through this, and we cannot keep approaching the healing of it in one way. We need to look at it holistically, in my opinion, and that is including so many different aspects of the self. Like our personalities are so crazy diverse, but also so crazy like within the one self. There's so much to us. We have so many different things that we need to touch on in order to feel whole, in order to be whole, in order to avoid these things, in order to find our self-worth, find ourselves even. So I just want to start addressing that in that community. I also made a Facebook page. I don't think I've announced that yet, but that's another, it's Evolved Community, EVOLV 3D. Um, so yeah, check those out if you want. And I'd love to have you. And I'm excited about that. And I just finished my website just about. So you're welcome to check that out as well. Anyway, after my advertisement, I left off last episode when I was about 22. And this was right before I met my husband. And I was healthy. I was actually feeling happy, like the for real kind of happy. I was sober. I was fed up with being sad. And I obviously my life was going nowhere at the time. And I wanted a new experience. So my parents were doing this thing they were seeing a doctor, my anesthesiologist from my back surgery, oddly enough. I don't know why that detail is important, but they were seeing her for therapeutic hormone stuff. I don't know. They were balancing their hormones in like a natural way, I guess. But I did that with them. It worked so well. And I think this is so crazy. Like our hormones have so much more to do with our overall body, but like our mental state of being than we realize. It made a world of difference. Like my levels weren't even registering when I first signed up for it. Like my estrogen and testosterone levels were not on the charts, I'm pretty sure. And that's not cool. Like I was 22 years old. I should have been like in my prime, like really solid levels. And I was not. And that had a lot to do with my mental health, my overall state of being. So I wasn't drinking. And my husband at the time had just moved here like a month or two before. And he was also sober. He was never a drinker, but um, we didn't do any of that together. Like we did take psychedelics together, which is a different thing entirely because it's awesome. I love psychedelics. it's hard to find somebody that you really click with on that level on those kinds of like self-exposing type of drug. Like they pretty much fillet you. So your soul shows through any sort of egoic exterior that you want to portray. And it's intense, but I love it because I love my soul. I feel like it beams with such love and radiance when I'm tripping. So it's a wonder I never abused acid or mushrooms, honestly. Maybe I just respect the sacredness too much of them. I use them spiritually to like reset my whole self and like kind of dive deep inside myself and pull out the things that need to come out. Like whether that's getting rid of them or embodying a new part of myself. Just helps me grow. Anyway, so my husband and I had a very rough relationship. And it wasn't at first, obviously. We were great for the first 7 or 8 months. He was everything that I had been waiting for. He was the perfect guy, completely. But I was really naive and I gave everything to him too soon. I was pregnant within 3 months, and then we got married after 7 or 8 months. And we bought a house right after that, like literally within the next month. And it was just a lot of stress on us both. And I was hella pregnant by that time, and it was just so much. But he started to withdraw, and he was withdraws when he's stressed. So he was working and the only one working because as soon as I got pregnant, he was like, "Oh, I got this. I want to provide for us. You can raise the kids." And I was like, "Great. I'm down." I was totally okay with that. And it just kind of backfired on us, I think. So I was sober through my pregnancy and then afterwards as well, for like 7 months, I breastfed my kid. So around the time I started drinking again, though, um, I was trying to reconnect to my husband because we drifted so far apart. We were living on separate floors of our house. And in that attempt to reconnect to him, I had started drinking again but it wasn't super bad yet, but I made a big mistake. And because, like I mentioned earlier, I have a codependent attachment style, um, that had me wanting to make him happy in any way that I could. When we met, he confessed to me that he liked opiates. And I was thinking, hey, me too. I used to take oxys and stuff at school. So, and then my back surgery, and it wasn't a big deal to me. So I started asking around for some pills, like to my friends locally. And that search quickly turned into a search for heroin. How fast that moved is beyond me. I can't even remember the process, but I remember who sold them to us. And it was a friend of a friend, possibly. And it was very weird. He was kind of sketch about it because like he didn't know us. And that's not a drug that people just ask for randomly. So he had us buy a ball because to like, I don't even know to say how committed we were or how like not cops we were. And for those of you who don't know, um, a ball is the weight of it. Like a gram is a gram of weight, right? In weight. So you would buy a gram of heroin or a gram of coke or whatever. Um, we we got a ball, so the ball is 3.5 grams. That's a lot of heroin. For someone who doesn't do it. That's a lot of heroin for someone who does, honestly. Like that's it's a good little bit of it. But I felt trapped and the emotional turmoil that he had me in and my poor coping mechanisms had us just growing further and further apart, and I couldn't stand it anymore. And I wanted to do something good. I don't know. It was stupid. I was young. And this was among the many bad decisions that we made as a way to deal with the pain that we were going through. This relationship was a total roller coaster filled with breakups and reconciliations and everything in between, like moving away and getting back together. And each time I thought that things would change, and they only seemed to get worse. This cycle drained me in every single possible way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, even. It took a long time for me to realize just how stuck I was, both in addiction to the dope and the addiction to the toxicity that I would succumb to after every time we got back together. We would have the love bombing stage in sobriety when we got back, and then quickly it would fall and we'd relapse. And every single time it sucked. So in 2019, we moved to Louisiana, and through that time, we were sober for a little while. I wasn't, I was drinking. But as far as anything else goes, we didn't do anything else. And we were living with family at first, and then like we moved out of there and ended up just back at that again. It was something that I had asked for. I was in a lot of pain. I needed another back surgery, and I wasn't seeing a doctor down there. I didn't know anybody. I didn't want to see a fucking back surgeon in New Orleans, and I just was nervous about that. So I asked my ex to find me some of that stuff. And at first he said no, and I was like upset with him. I remember being upset with him for it. And because also we were miserable. I was miserable. I was not happy in that marriage, and he was not either, obviously. And we were just roommates after a while, and it's stupid to live like that, I think. Anyway, so we were super unhappy down there, and I was going through, I began the worst depression of my life in the beginning of 2020, but we got pretty bad on that with our addiction to where we had tried to quit several times and it was not working. And we would, go through like half a day or a day of like horrible withdrawals and then have to like, and he was going to work through all of this and like have to have to succumb to it and get some more so that we weren't all messed up, like all sick and everything. And that is the one of the scariest things. Like feeling like that is like the worst. It's truly the worst. Like because you're sick and you're aware that it's only gonna last that first like 6, maybe 12 hours, maybe. And that's like pretty bad. And that's like if you quit after using like a lot of it and you just stop. And that's what we were doing. We had like a good gram a day each. And that's a lot of money a day for sure. And for one thing. And two, it's super unhealthy. And it was a different type of heroin there. Is just something else. So it was making me very, very sick. And I couldn't handle my days anymore. So I got scared and I told my parents. And they like immediately left home and came to get our daughter. And we stayed so that we could get help. And we did. We went to therapy and both got on a MAT program, which is medically assisted treatment. So we were both on Suboxone. And obviously, the Suboxone wasn't what we wanted. And the therapy was virtual. It was at the beginning of 2020. So, like, everything was online. And, like, I think it was like right after they shut down everything and my parents came to get her. And we could not quit together. There was no way we were going to because I would quit for like a day and drink to get rid of the withdrawal symptoms, which kind of worked, but not ultimately. Like I didn't want to feel like that. But I was able to like make him dinner when he got home and everything instead of being sick. But then he'd come home with more. And it was always something that it was like, yeah, give me some. So when I decided that was enough, I was like, we can't do this together, obviously. So let's do this apart. We made a deal. I would come and get our daughter, and then it would force it would force me to get clean, because I had to get on a plane and everything, and then I'd bring her back, and we would be fine if he was going to get clean up as well. Long story short, he fell down a dark hole while I was gone, and he didn't quit. So I said, screw it too. I had gotten on a MAP program here since then, and I was living with my grandmother, me and my daughter. And the program that I was on, it was a substance use disorder program, and through a mental health facility out where my grandmother lives. And it was the worst facility I've ever dealt with, like for mental health in general, but like for substance abuse problems. Like this was awful. She put me on 3 strips a day. If you've ever taken Suboxone, that's too much. But Suboxone is poison in itself. It's not good. You're trading your addiction, honestly. Like it sucks. Like it's supposed to get you off and it does. And it's safer because it's more regulated, but like the withdrawals from Suboxone were awful. But like I was on 3 a day and I was starting to get migraines and like getting really sick. I was working at campground, so I was like hot and I felt like I was overheating. And my ex he was feeling the same way in Louisiana. He was working under houses and he's a plumber. So it was like really killing him and it was hurting me too. So I talked to my doctor and I had to leave her a message. She then referred me to the nurse. And then the nurse called me. They didn't have me make an appointment. They didn't see me or assess any of my symptoms. And she was like, yeah, just pull back a half a strip. I did that for one day and it didn't work, obviously. So I got very frustrated and I just quit, like completely just stopped. Don't do that on any sort of drug like that or opiate or whatever. Like, don't do that. You have to taper down. But I didn't know that on those. I didn't know very much about Suboxone except for that. It was like helping me get off of the other stuff. And it was the worst. Like for like 2 days, I was miserable and like very, very sick. Um, but in this is why I do what I am doing. And the reason that I'm on this mission is we're losing people too much. Like I don't understand why like that mental health facility. I like wrote them a letter. They were such a terrible place. Like I wrote them a letter, like strongly worded, like I wrote their like upper people. I don't even fucking remember who it was, but the fact that they just completely dismissed me was irritating to say the least because I was furious. I felt forgotten, and it's a lucky that I wasn't on heroin at the moment because some people only reach out one time. A lot of people only reach out one time, and that was me reaching out. Like and if those people that only reach out the one time and they get rejected or dismissed like that, like I did, they might not ever try again, and then they end up sadly as another statistic. And I'm super passionate about like reframing this structure for us because that's crazy to me. Like, what the actual fuck? Why are you in this industry? We need compassion in these facilities, like actual care, like actual individualized attention and plans, and not just a you're not their number. Here you go, and just like completely ignored. And I don't know. I was disgusted. So, and before this, I tried to go to AA classes and NA classes while I was in Louisiana, and maybe it was the virtual experience of it, but I didn't like it. I didn't really resonate with the philosophies as well. I felt like I was claiming a victim status. Like I was made to believe that my addiction would always have power over me and that I had to claim the status like always being an addict, even in sobriety. And that just it doesn't sit right with me. And I felt like just another number again in that aspect as well, and not a unique person who needed real help, individualized help. I know that these programs do work for a ton of people, and that's great. And I really hope that you continue to utilize that, whatever works. But I also know a ton of people that they don't work for and that are just kind of lost in this whole, what do I do now? Like you can't keep checking into rehab for 30 days and then relapsing. You can't keep up with the way you're currently living. So we've got to change things. So again, I'm going to stop right here just to something or wrap things up for now. Because I'm, pretty far into this. But anyway, uh, my mission is to provide a compassionate, diverse, and supportive approach to recovery, a holistic approach where we talk about finding yourself first, maybe quitting one substance at a time, maybe the finding your self-worth is so key. I had to do that before I could quit because obviously that's part of it when you're addicted to something like that, like, or anything, you have a self-worth issue. You have something in you saying that you're not worthy of better. And it took me a while to like fix that. And I want to help other people realize those things in themselves. We're not meant to walk this path alone. So let's evolve together through the Evolved Perspective community. Check that out. Again, it's evolvedperspective.com. It's EVOLV 3D perspective. And yeah, I appreciate you listening to these stories, and I hope that you can get something out of it every time you listen. And I'll leave you with the 3Ds again, the 3D perspective. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself or on someone you care about who struggles with addiction. Don't assume. Don't assume that everything's okay when you notice changes in someone. And don't assume that you're stuck in this place forever. And finally, don't forget. Don't forget who you are, why you're here, and that this is happening for you, not to you. Till next time. Bye.